A covenant is simply a contract, a very, very important binding contract made between two parties. It can be a peace treaty between nations or cities or kings. It can be a business agreement. It can be establishing ties of kinship, things like this. In the Bible, my understanding is that there are three distinct covenants made between God and humans. The first time we see a covenant made in the Bible is between God and Noah and his descendants. The second time we see a covenant made in the Bible is between God and Abraham and his descendants. Now, interestingly, Abraham has lots of descendants, but it gets renewed with Isaac and then with Jacob. And then the renewing kind of stops at that point. So the covenant remains with all the children of Jacob, or the children of Israel, the Israelites. And then the third covenant is the one that's prophesied in the book of Jeremiah as being the new covenant, which is made through Christ. So, for example, when we come to a New Testament writer such as Paul, he encourages us to do our best to live at peace with all people, whether they be Jew, Gentile, or believer. So when Paul divides the whole of the human race into categories, he does it according to covenant, and he identifies three distinct groups: Gentiles, Jews, and Christians. So the first covenant with Noah is a covenant which pertains to all humans. And all humans, whether they know it or not, and whether they like it or not, are therefore in this relationship with God. They are born into it. By birth, they are born into this relationship with God, whereas in which God promises never to wipe out all humans again with a flood, and God asks in return for certain laws to be kept. Do not murder, do not eat blood, things like this. Now, the next covenant was made with the Jewish nation. And again, you're a member of this covenant through birth. You're born into it. You're born Jewish. And again, accompanying that covenant are a series of laws, circumcision being maybe the most important, Sabbath observance, things like this, in return for which God maintains a special relationship with you. Now, the final covenant, one with Christ, therefore is also through birth. But Jesus clarifies what kind of birth this is. It is a spiritual birth. So he says to Nicodemus in John's Gospel, you must be born again. So you are born naturally into Noah or into Abraham, Moses, but you are born spiritually into Christ, into membership of the new covenant. That is a wonderful thing, because what it means is that everybody on the face of the planet has a relationship with God. By birth, Noah or Abraham and Moses. But God's will is that everybody has that second birth to move into the third category, the third way of relating to him. So the reason I would limit the number of covenants in the Bible to 3 is the terminology of covenant making. Where in the Bible do you find the phrase "and God" or "and the Lord made a covenant with"? So, we've been reading the Bible for 2,000 years, and lots of extra interpretations have come along, and people want to see a covenant with Adam and various other kinds of covenants. And the classic system builds it up to 7 because we become obsessed with seeing everything in sevens. It's a special number. That's all well and good, but if you're looking for where it explicitly states "and God made a covenant with," you're really talking about just those 3. So in other words, there's more to a covenant than simply a promise. God often talks to people in the Bible and says, I'm going to do this, and because of my servant David, I will do this. But that is not a covenant. A covenant is something a lot more serious.